I've stopped to take some photos, and I'm like halfway through filming another video, but I thought I would stop and do a modification tour. Nothing crazy, but the video I'm actually filming at the moment is me owning this bike for a year and sort of doing a review on it. I've already done like an owner's review when I first got the bike, but obviously a year later I've got more to say and more experience on it. But obviously over the past year, she's changed a bit. She didn't look like this to start with. She was basically completely stock. The only thing the previous owner had put on the bike were these dragons. I've kept them on, they look really cool. Everything else that's different has been because I wanted to change it. So most of this stuff is sort of like unnecessary aesthetic purposes. This is not my daily anymore. Last winter I was using it a lot more in not fair weather conditions. This year I have the luxury of not only owning or you being able to use a car, but also working from home. So she is for fun. That being said, let's get started. One of the first things I did to this bike was the exhaust. So Scorpion circuit taper exhaust. It's literally just the slip-on. So all you got was this. It is a road legal exhaust for the 250, and it sounds pretty decent, you know, with or without the baffle, you can decide. Let's be honest, she's a 250, so she's not going to do anything insane. She's not going to sound like an inline 4, but she does make more noise than her standard stock exhaust, which actually did look pretty good. It was a silver can. I think it looked a lot nicer than the newer Ninja exhaust, which look a bit plasticky. But anyway, I much prefer that. I got it because it's not necessarily loud pipes save lives, but I do like the fact that I can be heard when the bike is lower down in the revs, whereas with the stock exhaust that was just non-existent. So that was one of the first things. As soon as I passed my test, that was added on. Next was more of a maintenance thing, and they're absolutely filthy because of where I've just ridden down. I changed the tyres out because the old tyres, she'd been sat for a while in the garage, and the old tyres were anyway way too old. The tread was fine, but they had absolutely no grip. I learned that when I first went out in the wet and almost low-sided. So I changed them. They were Metzeller's. They are now Michelin Pilot Streets. The only problem with the Ninja 250 is obviously the really thin rear wheel. So I was limited in terms of tyres I could choose without widening the wheel. So it's a 130. But these Pilot Streets have lasted me since about March so far. They're doing really well. They are meant for basically all-weather riding, and they do exactly that. I bought them because at that point I was riding a lot more in the wet. They still do really well now. I reckon I can get the winter out of them and then probably change for the summer. So, whilst I'm over here, I spotted another one. There's two down here. So we have this Rearhugger, which also replaced the chain guard. It's all one thing. So the Rearhugger goes over the back tyre because the underside of the bike was getting absolutely covered in mud. I don't know why it didn't have a Rearhugger as standard. That came from Pyramid Moto. And then I've got a gold DID chain and new sprockets to go with it. Bronze sprocket looks pretty nice in my opinion. The chain again was just because it needed replacing. And then obviously I'll change the sprockets as well because that is recommended. We might as well talk about the Go Faster stripes. So I have this gold vinyl. I bought basically a sheet of vehicle wrap and then cut it into strips and put it on the bike in ways that I wanted to. I particularly like the tail bit. I think that looks really nice. And then I cut out actually the same thing we used to print cut the prints for these hoodies that I'm wearing is what we used to cut that Tiptoe Biker sign. So it's just because, you know, that's my username, so I put it on the bike. Anyway, that is sort of going in with the gold theme. In the same way, I painted the wheels gold, so they were black as stock. I painted them when we were changing the tyres. Basically just vehicle spray paint. I did try to use paint stripper, it did not work. So it is gold paint over some black paint, some chrome where it did come off, and then like a varnish to coat it it did okay. There were patches. I might repaint them. You can't really tell when you look up close, but I know they're there. I might repaint them when we change the tyres. I'm not too sure, but they look pretty good, you know. It just gives it a bit of an edge. Bit more unique. Next thing are these levers. These I bought because the standard stock levers wouldn't allow me to sort of hover over them when I was on the throttle. They were too far out, so these obviously you can bring them in and they can get as close as you want, or you can bring them all the way out and you may just want colored levers. Also, they bend up in the event of an opportunity where your bike decides to faint. They won't go anywhere. They're pretty decent. I like them. They've got ninja on the side. Obviously I got gold because we can kind of see a theme forming here. I was debating at one point wrapping the bike, but I've kind of decided against that now. I like this one too much, so sorry folks, you won't get a wrapping video unless I change my mind again, which might happen. I don't know. Next up, little one, but it's quite funny. It's an Oxford foghorn. Because bike horns are typically pretty rubbish. Noxie's was alright, but this is loud and it makes it sound like your boss is in your way. So if anyone ever pisses you off or cuts you off or just in general is being a stupid rider or driver, you can let them know. So that's that. Next up, we've got quite a collection of stuff from RNG now. So we'll start with the first things I installed, which were this tank protector. I got one from eBay, not RNG, just a crappy brand. It came off almost immediately. This one is not going anywhere. It is very grippy, but also it protects my tank because there were some scratches down here from my leathers. So it all in all just looks really nice. Really happy with that quality. And you know, again, I'm not really needing grips on a 250, but in terms of protecting my tank from more scratches, it's already sort of proved its worth. The other RNG product I installed in that first video was this tail tidy. So originally Noxie had this big bit of plastic going down, and this has basically compressed all of it. It was insane the amount of plastic came off the bike when we were changing that over, and it's got a really nice tail light as well. Yeah, you can kind of see it shining there, and then obviously the indicator sat in. It was super easy to install, apart from the fact that I didn't read the instructions. But yeah, it just really makes the bike look so much tidier. When you look at it from here, there's no sort of plastic coming off the side. The only downside is the size of my plate. I might get a smaller one, I might not, who knows. Next up, these bad boys, crash bungs. Again, obviously from RNG, you can see the logo. These are to prevent the case of lots of damage occurring should she again decide to faint. If you look at it from the side, you can see that crash bung basically sticks out further than a lot of aspects on the bike. The only things that are left runnable are things like the handlebars, which move, the indicators, which are really cheap to replace. I know, I've already done it. And the exhaust. I might get an exhaust cover for that at one point. Who knows? Actually, I know they do a Scorpion one. I also installed the stickers because they came with the packet, and they were very kind enough to give me the crash bungs and the fork protectors, so I thought I would pop their logo there. I quite like the stickers, they kind of fit the bike. Moving on from those crash bungs, which I think are probably the best investment for a modification on your bike, are also those fork protectors. So again, these stick out so that they cover basically any damage that might happen to the brakes, to the forks, anything like that. They stick out far enough that that's not going to be too much of a problem should you low side or drop the bike or anything like that. That's more likely in winter, so I wanted to make sure they were on there so that, and I'm not going to be riding in extreme conditions, but what if I'm caught out? What if I'm just on a gravelly patch like that and the bike tips? I want to make sure that my bike is not going to have the scratches like this from the first time or the second time she fainted. Okay, last thing in terms of changes I've made to the bike, and this might be a bit of a rant. I'm going to be fair, I haven't yet contacted him. I'm going to do that when I get home. Why is there muck on the seat? These Oxford heated grips. Now, when they work brilliantly, and they saved my hands from a lot of pain when I was riding in the winter last year. And I know they will save my hands from a lot of pain this year if they work. I have already, you see that blue thing there? I've already replaced that connection once. I've had 3 issues with these. The first one has been fixed, the other 2 haven't yet. So I'm pretty sure the first issue was this light was turning on, this base light, but the grips weren't heating up. That got fixed because the connector was basically bust. Fair enough. Connections might fail, maybe we didn't wire them in right, I don't know. Fixed, nice and easy job. Then, just before summer started, this grip stopped working. That one stayed working, so I thought, oh, the left connection's gone. Alright, not ideal, but we can fix it. Literally a day later, both connections go, and this stops working. Now, so far we've tested, it's still plugged into the battery, and actually the wires that lead up to it are still live, so there's something wrong either in here or in the connection parts. I got these for Christmas last year, so they've not even lasted a year. And yes, I procrastinated getting them fixed because we went into summer and I wasn't using them, and to be quite honest, I forgot about them. And then it got cold again, and I was like, oh yeah, these don't work. So I will add some text onto the video if there are any updates on that. But I love the heated grips. I prefer them over wearing heated gloves, just because I have little hands and I don't want to wear a lot of fabric around my hands because it's already hard enough to reach the levers sometimes in big bulky gloves. Another thing, again, not really a modification. None of this stuff is crazy. I've not gone into the engine or replaced air filters or anything like that. She runs pretty good, she's a good bike. So it's less mods and more add-ons to the bike. Quad lock. A lot of people have asked actually which quad lock this is. This is the fork stem mount for the Ninja 250. Obviously, as you can look at the handlebars, there isn't a lot of space to wrap something. You've literally got this portion here, and there's nowhere else you could put it. Okay, that is pretty much it. Again, really, there's only one performance mod, and that's the exhaust, and that's barely classed as a performance mod. I've got a lot of compliments of this bike over the past year, and I'm looking forward to another year with her.